We look at it literally every single day, yet we almost never stop to actually appreciate it. The human skin isn't just some passive covering. It is the body's absolute largest organ. It's this dynamic, living shield acting as our ultimate protective barrier against everything from physical trauma and UV light to temperature extremes and bacteria. But beyond just protecting us, it's also an incredibly communicative organ. Whenever something goes wrong, whether that's inside or outside the body, the skin is usually the very first place to show the evidence. So today we're going to treat the skin like the complex scene of a fascinating medical detective story.
Welcome to The Explainer. I'm your host, and today we are officially putting on our detective hats to investigate the clues our skin leaves behind. We're going to decode the structural secrets of our body's largest organ, learn exactly how clinicians track down the culprits behind common skin conditions, and uncover some of the absolute latest breakthroughs in dermatological care. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's the roadmap for our forensic investigation today. We'll be hitting 1. The skin's architecture. 2. The dermatological detective. 3. Decoding skin lesions. 4. The anatomy of acne. And finally, 5. Tackling atopic dermatitis.
Starting off with Section 1, the skin's architecture. To solve any case, you need to know the layout of the scene, right? Well, our skin structure basically relies on 2 main layers. First up is the epidermis. Think of this as your outer shield. What's truly fascinating here is that the epidermis is completely avascular, meaning it has absolutely 0 blood vessels of its own. It's topped off by the stratum corneum, which is a layer of hardened cells that do the heavy lifting of physical protection. And right down at its base, it holds melanocytes, the cells that pump out melanin to protect us from the sun's harmful rays. Now contrast that with the dermis sitting just underneath it. The dermis is the life support system. It is highly vascular, totally packed with the blood vessels that feed the epidermis above it. It's also where you'll find your nerve endings, so you can sense pain, touch, and temperature, alongside sweat glands and hair follicles. The dermis relies on this supportive network of collagen, elastin, and fibrillin to give your skin its strength and bounce. Oh, and just below both of those, that's the hypodermis, a layer of fatty tissue that acts as a supravital cushion and insulator for your whole body.
Moving right along to Section 2, the dermatological detective.
Out of all the questions a doctor could possibly ask a patient, there is one that stands out as the single most important diagnostic question in the history of a presenting condition, and it's this: how long has the lesion been present? Why is that so crucial? Well, because the answer immediately forces the investigation down one of 2 very distinct paths. It allows the clinician to figure out if it's an acute condition, meaning it's been around for less than 2 weeks, or a chronic condition that's been lingering much longer. Just getting that simple timeline straight immediately rules out dozens of potential suspects.
Once that timeline is locked in, the detective hunts for more specific clues. They look at past medical and family history. Like if a patient comes in with eczema, does their family have a history of asthma or hay fever? If so, that points straight to a genetic link. They also hunt for signs of pruritus, which is just the medical term for itching. A patient might sit there and say they don't scratch, but excoriation marks on the skin? That is undeniable physical evidence that they actually do. They also dig into the patient's lifestyle. Does a nasty rash on the hands miraculously clear up over the weekend? That's a massive, glaring clue pointing to an occupational irritant, like some chemical they're handling at work. Have they traveled recently to a tropical climate? And I absolutely love this next one. If a rash is triggered by the sun, the exact time interval matters immensely. If the rash pops up within just 5 minutes of sun exposure, the detective strongly suspects solar urticaria. But if it takes several hours to appear, the prime suspect completely shifts to polymorphic light eruption. The devil is literally in the details.
All right, Section 3, decoding skin lesions. Let's ground this in reality for a second. In an actual clinical setting, you might run into something called post-inflammatory desquamation. That's essentially just the skin peeling or flaking off as it heals from an infection, like cellulitis. Seeing stuff like this highlights exactly why a comprehensive physical examination is so incredibly vital. A good dermatologist isn't just going to look at one isolated spot you point out. They need to examine the entire skin surface. They're checking the distribution, the symmetry, and the overall context of the lesions. Because sometimes the absolute most vital clue to breaking the case is a patch of skin the patient hasn't even noticed themselves. Maybe it's hidden on their back or tucked away in a skin fold.
To accurately document what they find, clinicians use a very specific forensic language to describe the clinical morphology of a lesion. For instance, if they write down that a lesion is macular, it means it's completely flat. You can't even feel it if you run your finger over it. You can only see a change in color. If they call it a papule, that means it's a raised bump. They also test the physical texture. Is the spot soft and easily compressed, or is it indurated? An indurated lesion is hardened, you can't really compress it, and it often ends up forming larger, thicker areas that doctors call plaques. Nailing down these exact descriptions is absolutely essential for matching the physical evidence on the body to the correct disease profile.
Let's look at a specific case in Section 4, the anatomy of acne.
If we want to understand acne, we have to start at the absolute foundation. It all begins with the comedone. A comedone is the precursor to every single acne lesion you will ever see in your life. It actually starts out completely invisible as a microcomedone driven by androgen hormones. Eventually, it develops into the non-inflammatory lesions we all commonly recognize as blackheads or whiteheads. And here is a huge, critical takeaway straight from the clinical guidance. Squeezing these comedones is a terrible, terrible idea. Squeezing them can actually convert a mild, non-inflammatory comedone into a super-aggressive inflammatory lesion, which dramatically increases the risk of deep, permanent scarring. Just don't do it.
So, the life cycle of acne follows a very clear 4-step progression. Step 1, the microscopic issue begins with that microcomedone formation. Step 2, it breaches the surface and becomes visible as a non-inflammatory comedone. Step 3 is where things really escalate. As inflammation sets in, those non-inflammatory spots rapidly evolve, sometimes in literally just a few hours, into inflammatory papules and pus-filled pustules. Finally, in step 4, if that inflammatory process extends deeper down into the dermis layer we talked about earlier, it results in these deep-seated painful nodules and cysts. What starts as a microscopic hormonal trigger can eventually leave severe ice-pick scars. And when you consider that the average acne life for a person can be around 12 years, 12 years, understanding this progression is totally key to treating it early and aggressively.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, tackling atopic dermatitis.
We are currently witnessing a completely shifting medical landscape. Historically, treating severe atopic dermatitis, which most of us just call eczema, was incredibly difficult. But based on the absolute latest recommendations from the American Academy of Dermatology, just look at this strong recommendations row. We are seeing a total revolution in care. This is all thanks to the emergence of highly targeted biologic drugs like dupilumab and tralokinumab, and an entirely new class of oral medications called JAK inhibitors like upadacitinib and abrocitinib. The AAD strongly recommends these for managing the disease in adults. Meanwhile, older, much broader immunosuppressants like azathioprine or cyclosporin and even phototherapy have now been bumped down to conditional recommendations. The science is just getting so much more precise, and the treatments are getting significantly more effective as a result.
However, it is super vital to note that solving this case looks very, very different depending on how old the patient is. While adult care now features this broad, rapidly expanding range of approved systemic and biologic therapies, pediatric care requires a much more delicate touch. The most striking clinical difference highlighted in these new guidelines is a massive warning for children. The American Academy of Dermatology makes a very emphatic, strong recommendation against the use of systemic corticosteroids for pediatric atopic dermatitis. While adults might occasionally use them to knock out a severe flare-up, the risks to kids are just simply too high. This fundamentally alters the clinical approach when you're treating younger patients.
So we've explored the complex, multi-layered architecture of the skin, the brilliant deductive reasoning that dermatologists use every day, and the incredible, rapid advancements we're seeing in targeted treatments. From the microscopic origins of a single comedone all the way up to the systemic impacts of severe eczema, your skin is a living, breathing record of your overall health. So I want to leave you with this one thought. The next time you look in the mirror, what clues is your body's largest organ trying to tell you? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking questions.